Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Minisode number 37 on the More Than Fitness podcast. Once again, in the parents' basement, and I say that as a disclaimer in case there's any barking noises from little fluffy fur animals around here. Also meows, because got my mom a new kitten, a little Siamese kitten for Mother's Day. You hear that, or some trampling going on upstairs from the degenerates that are my sister and her friends. Just want to give you a heads up. But anyway, today's minisode is one very near and dear to my heart, and probably also many of your all's hearts as well. Figuratively and literally, considering the effects that energy drinks have on your cardiovascular events. But we'll get to that in a second. Today's topic is, are energy drinks bad for you? This is the golden question, right? That many of us are trying to figure out. Should we be drinking these monsters every day? Should we be drinking the Bang energy drinks or something like that, right? A lot of you may consume at least one of these every single day. And today I'm going to kind of lay it all out for you, and you can make your decision from there. Because unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and I'm just going to tell you, hey, yeah, drink as much as you want. It's completely safe, et cetera, because there are two sides of the coin. And I think the first question that we have to ask whenever we're trying to assess are energy drinks bad for us is, what is in an energy drink? And so some of the common ingredients for energy drinks are caffeine, taurine, B vitamins, some herbs such as like ginseng and guarana. I think that's how you say it. And then you have sugar and or artificial sweeteners, right? And so a lot of you all reading this are you're obviously going to be a little bit healthier than the average person, and you probably are drinking the sugar-free version of these drinks, right? You're not drinking the fully loaded Red Bulls or the fully loaded Monsters, etc. But a lot of the research, especially some of the stuff that I'm about to talk about, is the ones that have they're fully loaded, right? They're packed with sugar. Nonetheless, I think it's important to look at all of it, because the reason why we can't just look at the individual ingredients, say, okay, caffeine, how is that? How safe is that for us? Okay, taurine, how safe is that? The B vitamins, obviously those are pretty safe. But you can't just look at each individual ingredient on the nutrition label of a Monster or something like that and say, oh, okay, each one of these individual ingredients by themselves are safe and whatever, are effective or not effective, right? Because that's not exactly how ingredients work. That's not how nutrients work inside our body. Once combined, they interact with each other. So if you would just be looking at one ingredient over the entire a conglomerate of ingredients together and how they interact, you would be kind of missing the forest through the trees, right? And so that's what I want to do today. The first thing so all the ingredients that I just said, and what I'm going to do is, since I use pictures on this podcast now, for the video podcast at least, I'm going to put up a nutrition label right here. And I'll throw up what it looks like on the back of, say, a sugar-free white Monster. And you see all of those big ingredients and everything. There's a big long list with tons of words that you can't pronounce. And you heard Joe Schmo on Instagram say that if you can't pronounce the words on the nutrition label, you shouldn't be eating it. And that's just simply not the case. And I will tell you why right now. Because if you look at the nutrition label on the back of a Monster, a lot of the ingredients in that, like I said, are going to be things like B vitamins, right? And if you see pyridoxine on the back of a nutrition label on an energy drink, you're going to be like, oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't know what that is, et cetera, et cetera. You're freaking out and you're like, okay, I'm not going to eat that because I can't pronounce that word. Well, that's just vitamin B6, right? So that's the actual, the chemical name of vitamin B6. We just call them vitamin B6 because pyridoxine isn't as easy to name for most people. So same thing with like vitamin B3, which is commonly found in them, which is niacin, right? A lot of people Vitamin B3 is a little bit easier for that, right? But on the back of these labels, they're going to have the entire word and the majority of these ingredients on the back of these energy drinks. So like I said, it's going to be caffeine, taurine, which caffeine we're well familiar with, taurine, which is just an amino acid. Then you have the B vitamins that I just mentioned. You have some herbs such as ginseng and guarana, and then you have the sugar and the artificial sweeteners. And so what I want to do is I'll start with caffeine, and then because there's two main ingredients in here that we want to pay attention to that has shown the most effect on people. So like I said, we're going to have all of these ingredients together that have an effect and work synergistically with each other. But as far as how they affect us, and especially the adverse effects that they could potentially cause, it's going to come from the two ingredients, which is caffeine and sugar, right? So if you guys are drinking the sugar-free versions, you're obviously not going to have to worry about the sugar aspect of these things. And then artificial sweeteners, I don't think that I don't, at the end, I'll touch on it a little bit, but artificial sweeteners in low doses are completely healthy for you, or at least they're not unhealthy, right? They don't have any adverse effects. So with caffeine, the average for each can of Monster, for example, is going to be, I think it's like 140 milligrams of caffeine. That's about standard for most of these energy drinks. And less than 400 milligrams per day has been considered safe for most people, but there seems to be a lot of different inter-individual effects with this. So basically your genetics can play a pretty decent part as far as how your caffeine is metabolized in your body. So for some people, 400 may be way too much. And then, there's some different margins of error here for different people. But for most people, 400 milligrams per day should be your upper limit on how much you're consuming on a regular basis. And then, of course, with sugar, it's just like, for the most part, the sugar can lead to excess calories and can lead to overeating in general. So of course, if you're eating excess calories each day and you're overeating each day, that can lead to its own ill health effects from being overweight, right? So I think what is an energy drink? For the majority of it, it's not going to be an issue. I think the main things you have to pay attention to is going to be the caffeine and the overall sugar content in it. All right, then the next question would be, do these energy drinks cause harm? And this was a really interesting statistic in the article that I looked at that I got some of these stats. And energy drinks can cause harm, right? Like many things can cause harm. And they did this nice little interesting statistic here of between October 2010 and October 2011, so about a year, the U.S. National Poison Data System received 2.3 million calls. And so of the 4,854 calls related to energy drinks, which is about 0.2% of all the 2.3 million calls, nearly 2/3 were linked to contamination of unknown additives in the energy drinks, right? So it wasn't because of these certain ingredients or something in the energy drinks. It was actually from unknown additives that were contaminating these energy drinks. I don't know specifically, like, was this Monster? Was this Bang? Was this Rockstars? Like, what was the exact companies that got called out for this? My guess is that it would be a lot of lesser known companies that aren't as much in business today, or also they just aren't doing as well. Maybe the cheaper ones, right? Because they maybe don't have the same safety protocols as something like Monster or something like that may. I'm not 100% sure on that, but of course, there's going to be some risk involved, and that's something to consider, the contamination of unknown additives. There's nothing you can really do with that besides just avoiding energy drinks altogether. The rest of the people were affected through adverse effects on their cardiovascular system, right? So this was from seizures or abnormal heart rhythms, things like that. But for most people, the people who were at risk are going to be people who already had heart conditions in the first place, or they had really high blood pressure in the first place, or they were really overweight. So they had pre-existing health conditions, and then the energy drink, so the caffeine, and the other ingredients in the energy drinks, probably sugar included, that was kind of the tipping point for them to have a heart-related event, right? So that's what made them get the heart attack. They were already predisposed, and then that is kind of what triggered it. And then the most severe cases were the ones that involved alcohol plus energy drinks together. I don't know about you guys, but I was actually guilty of this whenever I was younger. I used to combine. There's a energy drink called Venom, and I would use the full sugar ones for sure. I would use Venom and then I think like Burnett's vodka, and I would mix those together, and it's not a good idea. Let me just say that, because you don't realize how drunk you are because you have the caffeine, or you have the energy drink, which is a stimulant and it keeps you more alert, but then you have the alcohol, which is a depressant, and obviously you can get intoxicated. And so you think that you're more alert than you actually are. And so that is obviously a recipe for disaster. Okay, moving on. So who is at risk? Like I mentioned before, people who are overweight, have high blood pressure, heart problems, etc. But then also, of course, pregnant women should not be drinking energy drinks, and also children and adolescents. I'm not going to spend too much time here because I don't think either of those are listening to this very much, and the pregnant women are probably aware they shouldn't be drinking tons of caffeine in the form of energy drinks. But the next question is going to be, are there benefits of energy drinks? And this is the interesting part. And I think, of course, we know with caffeine, there are tons of exercise performance benefits and fatigue fighting benefits that come from caffeine. And then, of course, you also have sugar, which is carbohydrates in general. And those aren't obviously bad for us by default, like inherently. And that can actually boost our cognition and exercise performance. And again, this is likely due to the sugars and the caffeine together. So yes, there are benefits. This is why people who drink caffeinated beverages before their workouts, they can see that little bit of boost. So yeah, there are benefits. You just have to understand the risks as well and see if the benefits outweigh the risks. And lastly, the final question, are they bad for you? So are energy drinks bad for you? So they can be, right? Based off everything that I said, you have the unknown additives. You have if you have some pre-existing heart conditions or you're susceptible to some type of adverse effects cardiovascularly, 100% you need to be careful with this. But with most things, the dose is going to make the poison. This goes for the amount of caffeine that you're consuming on a regular basis, the amount of sugar you're consuming on a regular basis, and also the artificial sweetener. So whether you're drinking the full sugar or the sugar-free versions of these energy drinks, the dose is going to make the poison, meaning one energy drink maybe every 1 or 2 days isn't going to kill you, as long as you're also not, packing on tons of other coffee and other stimulants on top of it, plus eating a shitty diet, plus not getting sleep. There's a lot of just unknown, there's a lot of other factors that depend on whether or not energy drinks can be bad for you, right? It's not just, okay, you drink this energy drink, you're going to see ill health effects. It's not that simple. And then also the pre-existing health condition of that individual. And again, most of you guys listening to this are going to be pretty healthy overall. So for the majority of you, I think you're going to be okay, as long as you make sure you're not downing several monsters every single day and you're taking care of yourself in general as far as sleep and diet and exercise and all of that other good stuff. You should be okay. So that's about it. So are energy drinks bad for you? Well, it depends, right? There are some benefits, there are some risks, and you have to just take that for what it is and see if the benefits outweigh the risk for you. And all in all, I'm going to continue drinking my Monster energy drinks on a regular basis. But yeah, that should be just about it for Minisode number 37 on the More Than Fitness on the More Than Fitness podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening and for watching. See ya.